Hi everybody, welcome back to Rich Bag Creations. Today I'm going to make one of the Grindylows and I'm going to make it out of polymer clay, so let's get started. So first of all, for the Grindylow, I'm starting off with the little belly, the torso. It has a really fat belly, so I just created a circle. Then I've just started squeezing down the top, which is going to be the chest part. And for the belly, it's really round. And in the middle of it, it has a little belly button. So I just pushed a little ball tool in like this. Then I dragged it a little bit on the top to create that little ridge that some of us have at our belly button. Just looking at some reference pictures from the Harry Potter studios, it has a little thing going on there. And that little dent goes a little bit upwards towards the chest in the middle here. I'm just going to smooth that out and work with it. And after that, I'm just going to texturize the belly a little bit, work on the chest, and then I'm going to put it in the oven so that it can stiffen up, so it's easier to add on more parts as I go along. So as you can see, it's just a lot of tweaking to get the right shape and proportions. You just have to work around. And now for the last part for the belly before I'm going to put it in the oven, it's just adding really small dots of clay. And what this will do, including a toothbrush, just pushing it down, is just going to create a really bumpy looking skin texture, because they have some bumps and rough, I don't know, sort of skin on them. So that's just what I'm going to do. I'm going to add a lot more than what I just did, but you get the point. The next step while the body is in the oven is to measure out 8 equal pieces of clay. I've already done all of the tentacles except one. And now I'm just going to roll that out, just taper it off in the end, so one end is thinner than the other one. And I'm roughly going to leave this thickness at the top. And rolling it out, I'm just going to leave some X's at the bottom, which I'm just going to pinch off. So I roughly have the same shape as the other tentacles now. And what I'm going to start doing is taking my tool, this one, after I flatten it down a little bit, so it is nice and stuck to the table. I'm going to start making lines and indents, and it's going to almost look like a black carrot. I'm just going to drag lines all the way on the entire tentacle. So once I've done that, I'm just going to use 3 pieces of wire that are tied together, and I'm just going to drag that over as well. So after I'm done with the main lines, I'm just going to go over with the same sponge I used in the Prisoner of Azkaban video. And I'm just going to press that on to create the skin texture that the Grindylow has. And I did the same thing with the sponge on the body before I put it in the oven. I just forgot to mention it. So once I'm happy with the texture and I think it looks good, I'm going to take the other end of my tool and I'm just going to press the edges down to create that sort of thin end that the arms have. I'm just going to carefully lift it up while I work so that it doesn't get stuck to the worktop. I'm just going to taper it roughly 2/3 down the way on both sides. Then I'm just going to neaten it up a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's supposed to be a little rigid. So there you see the line, and there's some loss of texture when you squeeze down the edges. So I'm just going to add it back in with the sponge, and that's pretty much it for the tentacles, and they're now ready to add on to the figure. So for the arms, it's 3 fingers. 2 of them is sort of connected at a higher point than the little thumb. I just added some suction cups like a octopus have. And for the texture on the back, I just used the sponge a little bit just to give the same texture as the rest of the little Grindylow. So for the arms, I'm just rolling out a piece of clay. So once you've rolled out a sausage, you just gotta cut 3 indents. And then sort of squeeze 2 of them a little bit higher than the third one. I'm just using a ball tool just to make the palm of the hand. I'm using the same one to create a little bow between the 2 fingers and to strengthen that division between the thumb and the 2 others. So it looks a little bit messy now, but I'm just going to sculpt it around until it gets some sharp claw looking fingers. So for the suction cups, I'm just rolling out little pieces of clay and then using a ball tool and just pressing little indents into all of them. I've cheated a little bit, so I added the 4 front legs and baked it once before I'm now going to add the 4 last that is going in the back. So after I bake them, I just attached them roughly. I'm going to show that in a minute. But what I did, I just made sure that there was enough space so that I could add pieces on and build a little bit of the folds and crevices that they have in the section between their belly and their legs. So I'm just adding on pieces and I'm just going to blend that in with the legs and the stomach. So adding the legs, I'm just using my tool and squeezing them down. And if there's too much at once, you can just squeeze it really thinly and then add a layer of texture after you baked it once. So what I did off camera is just that I just added all the suction cups on the little Grindylow. That took forever. It took a couple of hours, I think maybe even 3 hours. I don't even remember. But what I did, since the tentacles were already baked, I just took a thin strip of clay and I just smoothed that onto the tentacles so that the suction cups would get easier to like stick on so they wouldn't fall off again, since it's just really tiny pieces on already baked clay. So I just put a layer like this all over the tentacles before I added the suction cups. So making the suction cups, I just took little pieces of clay, a little bigger at the end, and then tapered it down to getting smaller and smaller. Just pinching off pieces of clay. You can just roll out a sausage and cut out pieces. And then using a 2mm tool like this, just squeezing in, and then as I get upwards to the end, I go down to, I think this is a 3mm and this is a 2mm, I don't remember, just a smaller size when you get towards the end. Now this is going to look really rough as the clay underneath is not really baked, but you get the point. And at the real end here, I just use a really tiny one and just press down the last couple just to make it an even sort of end to the tentacle. So that's what I did. What I'm going to do now is just add the arms onto the body and just using a little bit of clay, and I'm just going to squeeze them on and just blend the edges in. So I just put on a lump of clay at the top, which is going to be the head. So I just attached it to the little piece that I added before the oven. It's just a little ball on the top, so it's easier to add the head without it like going everywhere. So now just starting to shape it out a little bit, almost like an alien, but it's a pretty round head from the top, but it has a pretty distinct jaw in the front, and then the head goes into some small, almost tentacle looking like ears going towards the back. So I'm just going to start working with the main features of the face. So I placed the figure in the oven one more time just to harden up the base shape of the head. And now I'm just going to add some eyelids, a little bit of a chin, and then the teeth. And that is pretty much it. Perhaps a little bit more wrinkles and some small details. So I just painted the figure with a base coat of brown mixed with yellow, and I probably forgot some places because there's a lot of angles to this figure. But now I'm going to go ahead and start with the detail work. So to create some interesting detail in the paint job, I'm just using a old toothbrush with some paint, and I'm just flicking that on to the figure. And you can use a little bit of brown, a little bit of highlights using a lighter yellow, etc., just to give it a little bit of dimension and depth to the paint job. So after the flicking, I'm now just using a brown wash, really thin down paint, and just making the indents a little bit stronger everywhere so that the details pop a little bit, because right now it's looking a little bit flat. So that's just what I'm doing, and after that I'm gonna go ahead and start painting the mouth and the eyes as the last thing. final thing on the figure is adding a little bit of gloss into the eyeballs to give it a little bit of shine, and that's about it. So that is the finished project for today. We guys hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like down below or comment what you think. And that is everything. Thank you so much for watching.